Hi, my name is Leigh Odimah and these are my top 10 tips for getting ahead in digital marketing in the fashion industry. I'm Nigerian, both my parents are Nigerian, and I was born in London, I've lived all my life in London, and I have studied at the London College of Fashion. I did a strategic fashion marketing masters at the London College of Fashion, and before that I studied communications and cultural studies. I've worked in the marketing industry, in the PR industry. I've worked in various guises from music to art to and fashion. Specifically in the fashion industry, I've been working in marketing and PR for maybe about 15 years, and I've worked with names such as Louis Vuitton. I've worked with independent labels like H by Harris. I've worked with Saboye, who has a boutique in Shoreditch. I've worked with lots of different people. Sort of fell into fashion from working with record labels. I think at the time I was probably at Columbia. I was at Bad Boy Records, Arista, and working on lots of different events, and you kind of almost have to have a different wardrobe for every event, and you could have like 5 events a week. So I kind of started making my own outfits, and from there got commissioned to create little pieces for artists, and ended up sort of moving on from the fashion industry just at the point where music was going into digital. So I moved on and went into fashion with that in mind, sort of creating bespoke items. Used to do a lot of customizing and styling and personal shopping, that sort of thing. So moved on literally from music into fashion. So it wasn't like a conscious choice, although I have a background. My brother used to work in tailoring and my mum was a sample machinist, and she worked with some, I guess, household names. She used to work with Vivienne Westwood as a sample machinist, and she used to freelance all over the place, so you'd sort of get to see fabrics and patterns and things like that. She'd come home with those sort of things, so it was around, but it was something that I'd never wanted to do, and I just sort of fell into it, really. But I guess my biggest career highlight, my personal highlight, would be setting up my own label with a friend. We had a label called Sexy Buddha, and we used to design ladies' accessories, and it was mostly leather accessories on bags and t-shirts and things like this. So we were using this stenciling method, and we were putting it onto, I guess, fabrications that were sort of becoming popular at that time, but just getting into the market. So we started off quite small, working in a living room, and ended up with a studio, and were supplying people like Urban Outfitters and House of Fraser. So that was one of my personal highlights, because it was something that sort of running your own business was very different at that point, because I've gone from intellectual property to like being a creative. So that was a huge challenge. So I guess if I was thinking of highlights, that would be my biggest one. I started working in the digital industry because of I had a blog at the time, so I was sort of I was studying at the London College of Fashion, and mixing my interest with fashion and business with the digital world. And again, at that point, people were still working mostly with traditional marketing and traditional PR. So my interest fell in. I guess I fell into it by looking at the different ways that you could that fashion was telling its story on the internet. Some of the brands that I was working with at that time, a brand called H by Harris, and Harris Elliott was the CEO there, and he was very anti-digital at the time, and so we came together with his expertise in design and my focus on digital to I guess amplify, finding ways to amplify the brand online. Samson Saboye was another brand who at that point were also not anti-digital, but didn't quite understand how it worked. So how would you incorporate this into your strategy and grow your brand? Every creative business needs a digital strategy, and these are my top 10 tips. The first tip would be for any creative, whether it's fashion, art, design, music, to understand what it is that they want to use the internet for. So it could be that you're wanting to showcase your work, it could be that you're wanting to sell, it could be that you're wanting to build up your community around your brands, like fans, people that you want to talk to. The most important reason why you have to really understand why you're going into the digital world is because it can be quite time consuming. And having been a designer and knowing actually, you've got to create, you've got to design first of all, then you have to be able to sell it, make it and sell it, and all these other little things, do your accounts, go to your suppliers, all these things that you need to do to build your business. Often digital is just like forgotten, or it's something that you do on the side. But actually, if the emphasis was reversed a little and you incorporated digital right at the beginning stages, that's actually a way of helping the business as a proper marketing tool, rather than, for instance, paying a retainer to a PR agency, especially at the early days when you haven't got an awful lot of budget. So the internet and social media and e-commerce and all of these other platforms that are available at no cost to the designer can become an integral part of how you market your business. Tip number 2 would be to understand how those elements fit in with the overall business strategy. So for instance, if you're an accessories designer and you have a stall in Shoreditch Market or in Portobello Market, how can you help customers find you at Spitalfields or at Portobello? Now, bearing in mind, I'm based in London, so all of the way that the fashion industry works here is everything is very connected, and people are very, very used to using the internet. So it's quite easy to figure your way through that, with a bit of thought. But having said that, when you're working in the digital space, that's global and that's international, and people work very differently. So if you're a London-based business and you want to talk to a London audience, then you would frame your business online to fit with the business, as it stands as a real bricks and mortar business. If you're just an online business and you want to speak to a digital market that's international, then that would also be reflected in how you present your website. For instance, having another language other than English. So it all depends on your overall business strategy, how you use digital. It's not one fit for all types of businesses. So the third tip would be to really understand how digital can help your business grow. So beyond just using it as like a shop window, just to showcase, the way that I recommend my clients use, for instance, use tools such as Twitter and Facebook, are to, when you're building your audience, look at people, even though it's just on a computer, look at them as real people. So you're actually interacting with a real person. So you speak it. Your digital voice would be the same as your online, your real voice, and that would be how you speak, how you present yourself, so people understand holistically that this brand, for instance, you get the same thing if you come into a store as you do if you visit the brand online. And again, that literally is for any brand anywhere in the world. It's not specific to working in Europe. That's how I would recommend creatives in Africa, anywhere, that if you've got digital access, that you think about how your brand looks. For instance, in Nigeria, for instance, where you've got a lot of people using mobiles, your mobile version of your website doesn't necessarily look the same on a mobile as it does on a laptop or on a tablet, for instance. So you have to think about all of those things. It's not just a case of shoving up a few pictures and some text and hoping that everything works. My fourth tip would be to to look at the opportunities to sell your products, not necessarily online, but using the internet as a way to market and PR with the ultimate view of selling. So whether you're selling online and you're a website, or you sell in an e-commerce capacity, or whether you're directing customers to different outlets, and they could be outlets in your region, or it could be international outlets. So your whole strategy would be working so that actually, you know what, I need to think about how am I going to get this product, how am I going to get this bag or this dress to this company, or to this lady who lives in Taiwan, for instance. It's more than just a case of saying, okay, I want to sell internationally. So you'd be looking at, for instance, finding a sales agent. Tip number 5 would be to think about who you're going to partner with. And that's, I say partner, but that's not actually like a business partner. That is looking at different tools like, for instance, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, the Fancy. These are all tools that are of no cost to the designer, but actually not all of them would be relevant. For instance, if you're more of a visual person, then you may gravitate towards Tumblr, for instance, where you don't necessarily have, all the expectation is that you don't have to upload a lot of text, or it could be Instagram, which is even smaller, smaller amounts of text that you snap a picture from your iPhone and automatically upload that. If you're a creative, for instance, a photographer who wants to tell a story or has a journalistic element, then maybe a blog like Blogspot might be better for you. But actually, all of those relationships, I consider them to be partnerships. Tip number 6 would be to build the best website that you possibly can. And that doesn't have to have a huge budget, but I would say before you build your website, have a look around, do a little bit of research, see what potential competitors are doing, or go to websites that you really, really love and see what sort of colors they're using, what sort of fonts they're using, how they're using their pictures, whether they're using collages or whether they're using filters on their images. Have a really good shoot, the best shoot that you could do. Find models, have a look at how models pose, have a look at the way that they're styled, and do the best that you can. And that's to ensure for your own business that when you go out and once your website goes live, that you feel comfortable about sitting next to all the other websites that are going to come up when somebody, for instance, types in dress or anchor dress or shoes. So you want to make sure that your website looks and stands at least next to your competitors to give yourself a fighting chance, because people often can't reach you. They won't be able to pop into your studio. So build the best website that you can. Now, top tip number 7 would be to buy your domain name. Whatever you do, whether it's the name of your company or whether it's the name that sort of makes people think about your brand, buy the domain name and make sure you hang on to it. Tip number 8 would be to stay on top of what's going on in the industry around you. So that could be using tools, using websites, or visiting websites like the Business of Fashion, which is it's like the fashion Bible here in Europe, and a lot of people globally go to this website just to have a look and see what's going on, sort of where the big players are at. And the editor, Imran Ahmed, has a really good take on what's happening in the industry. So visiting websites like that where you can have a look and see what's going on in the industry, where you can get tips. You can almost even use, like for instance, people like Imran Ahmed as a mentor, because they're so knowledgeable and they're really great at sharing information. And that's information that actually, if you read it and it relates to you, you could use that every day, sort of building how to build your business from scratch. Tip number 9 would be to have an amazing lookbook. And a lookbook is it's It's called a book, but actually it could be anything from images to actually something that you print up on paper or on card. But have an amazing lookbook, the best that you can afford. Really think about working with models that have worked in the industry before, that know how to pose, that know how to show off your product really well, and a photographer that knows how to shoot fashion, and get a stylist and someone to do hair, someone to do makeup. Because the most amazing things can happen when you have a really good lookbook. People will be really interested in your product. It will make them want to buy or not buy. It can be the difference between selling and not selling. It can help you get featured on websites. It can help you get featured on different blogs. So if you have really strong images that people can relate to and can see how to wear your stuff, then it's a worthy investment. Tip number 10 would be to use video content, and that is not necessarily having a video shoot, but use moving images. So it could be anything from a GIF that you can use in a really creative way. And GIFs are those where you put images back to back, and it kind of creates like a moving version of an image. So it's not necessarily a video. Or would be to work with a video director, maybe a friend or somebody who's, you know, trying to create something for their own portfolio, whether that's like short Instagram videos or even a full video fashion film. So you've got a digital version of a lookbook, or something with a narrative that tells a story, because that's proven to be one of the most engaging forms of content online, where people can sit and click on play in YouTube or Vimeo, and they can watch your vision, your ideas. It comes to life with a video. So that tip would be, it's expensive to create a video, but there are ways of doing it creatively, and you have to think out of the box when you're using those sorts of tools. But it's definitely worth the brand. It's worth amplifying the brand in this way, because it's more memorable than just looking at a picture. It takes, you know, it kind of raises your stakes and raises your game.
Hi, my name is Leigh Odimah and you're watching Spice TV.